بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Amma ba'd. One of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attribute is Al-Wajid. Al-Wajid means the one who has everything. Normally the word wajada, which means to find something, refers to someone didn't have something and then finding it. But in Arabic language, this is not what wajada means. Wajada means to have it. Whether you were missing it, you lost it and then you found it, or you never had it and you got it, or you already have it. Just like the kuffar of Quraysh, they used to use the same word when they were invited by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Islam. وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا كَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. We found our forefathers doing the same thing. Now, in this sense, it wasn't found, or did not mean that we were missing it and then we found it. It's something that we always saw it. We always saw our forefathers doing the same thing. This is what wajada means in that sentence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-wajid, means He has everything. There is no one besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is al-wajid, because human beings and all other creatures, they are missing things more than what they have. What we don't have is much more than what we have. Look at anything that we have and start comparing it with what you don't have. The wealthiest person in the world, he may have, when it comes to wealth, a number that is for us maybe beyond imagination. He has millions. But after all, there is limit to how much that person has, and what he does not have is much more than what he has. I was looking at the picture of this universe, our globe. It was very interesting when I was looking at it, comparing it with the rest of the galaxies that are out there, that our universe, this globe that we live in, if you set it in comparison to the sun, it looks like a dot. It looks like a dot in the piece of paper. If you have a piece of paper and you put a dot in that paper, this is the size of this globe comparing to the sun. And sun, of course, is not the only thing that is out there. There are so many others in that galaxy. So now, say if a person owns the whole world, can anyone own beyond this? There is nothing. I mean, we don't have power of owning anything beyond this. And I don't think there will be any person that can own the whole world at the same time. That one person that would own everything and anything that is in this world. That's not possible. That's not happening. But even if it comes to that, is this person al-wajid? No. Does he have anything, everything? As soon as he would look up at the sun, he would realize he is only a dot. What he has is only a dot comparing to that piece of paper, and that piece of paper is only one page in a whole book that you see out there. There is a huge book out there. The book that has so many pages that we cannot even count the pages of that book. When you look at the horizon above you, when you look at the skies and the stars, and if a person wants to get the exact number of all the stars that ever exist up there, we can't do that. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only wajid. He is the only one who has everything, who gets everything that He wants. Besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can be wajid. Because what we are missing, what we don't have is much more than what we have, regardless of how much we can earn and how much we would get. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in an ayah of Quran, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Now these are physical things that we were comparing ourselves with, come to something that normally is out of our count. We cannot count how much knowledge a person has. When it comes to knowledge, a person may think, now I have acquired all the knowledge, as much as I could. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Regardless of how much knowledge you acquire, there is always someone who has more knowledge than you do. And not necessarily that this person will have the same knowledge, just like Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. No one can be more knowledgeable than Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam in their time regarding the Sharia. So Musa alayhi salam was the most knowledgeable person about the Sharia. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to another person, Al-Khidr alayhi salam, who had totally different type of knowledge. So take anything human beings can acquire, and you would realize that what we are missing is much more than what we have. What we don't have is much more than what we have. Any sort of knowledge a person can have, whatever we can acquire, but still there is so much more that we are missing that we don't have. If a person becomes the best lawyer in the world, not just in the country, in the world, but still there are so many other sciences around there that he has no information about. And children who have little knowledge about other sciences may challenge this person regarding those sciences. And this is the best lawyer in the world. A person could be the best physician in the world. He could be the best scientist, the most knowledgeable one in the world. But still, there are fields where he may not have no knowledge at all about that field. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is now we can understand the attribute Al-Wajid for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is there anything that you can think of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have? Regardless of what that thing is there anything that Allah does not have? And of course, this is what the name Al-Wajid is telling us, that Allah has everything. Allah has everything, and whatever is there, it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about a name, one of the attributes of Allah, Al-Malik and Al-Malik. Malik, the king. Malik, the owner. He is the king and he is the owner of everything. But this name Al-Wajid is telling us something beyond just being Malik. A person that owns the whole world, or he owns a house, or he owns something, we can call him, he is the Malik of this. But is this person Al-Wajid of everything? No, he is not. As I said, even if the person would own the whole globe and the whole universe and everything that's in it, still what he's missing is much more than what he has. So the only Wajid is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has everything. So now, if someone comes and introduces a God to us, that God went out and he was looking for someone, and he could not find the person, he is not Wajid. He can't find. He doesn't have it. God wanted to do something, and he looked around and he did not have the tools to do it. He is not Al-Wajid. Al-Wajid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Rabb, the God that we believe in, He is Al-Wajid. Means He never misses anything. He is not missing anything. He has everything. And there is nothing that you can think of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would do it if He has the ability, or God forbid we can say that if He has the tools, or if He has certain things He can do it through, He can use them to do this and to achieve it. There is nothing like this. He is Al-Wajid. He has everything. When a person realizes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Wajid, Of course, one is that the benefit of learning this name is that our attachment with Allah gets stronger, and we realize that He is the only Wajid. We realize the greatness of Allah in regarding to being Al-Wajid. At the same time, when we realize that Allah is Wajid and then compare our situations and situations of any other creature, any human beings, with that Al-Wajid, we would realize that everyone needs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All creatures, they need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they all are missing Allah. So, and the only one that has everything is Wajid. So then, every person has to turn to Al-Wajid subhanahu wa ta'ala. This will give us the understanding that we are always in need of Al-Wajid subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever a person feels, I'm missing something in my life, we can turn to Al-Wajid subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has everything. So now, when sometime a person feels, should I ask for this also? Am I asking for too much? There is nothing like too much when it comes to asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is Al-Wajid, He has everything, and no matter how much He gives, it does not reduce anything from His kingdom and from His ownership. Another name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Majid. Very similar, instead of waw is mim. But the word Majid is driven from the word Majd. And Majd means honor, respect, greatness. It's very similar to a name that we already talked about, Al-Majid, and at that time I made reference to this name also, that Al-Majid and Majid, they both are very similar attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason they are mentioned in two different forms, although the root word is the same, the meaning is very similar, but because of a slight difference that is there between Al-Majid and Al-Majid. Al-Majid refers to the one who has this as his own attribute. Majid emphasizes on being Allah's attribute, that He has all the greatness. Every greatness belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every honor and respect goes back and belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Majid means. And Majid means that a person who is Majid, who has all of this, he is giving it to others also. This is what Al-Majid would mean, that a person who is giving this to others, just like Ad-Darib, the one who hit others, Al-Mu'ti, the giver. So Al-Majid is the one who gives that honor and that greatness to others. So any person looking for any greatness, he has to attach himself to Al-Majid. When you attach yourself to Al-Majid, then you see the attribute of Allah as Al-Majid, that He's giving you the greatness also. So whatever would attach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will start having that greatness. So this is what Majid means. So Al-Majid is basically referring to his own attribute, that this is who Allah is, He Himself. And Al-Majid refers to his attribute of giving it to others. The same, he's Majid and he's giving that attribute to others, and therefore he is Al-Majid. Just like Ar-Raziq, that who gives, who provides to others also. So this is Al-Majid, the one who gives that greatness to others. And how does he give it? The more attachment the person has with Al-Majid subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we get that type of that greatness in this world and in the akhirah. Another attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Wahid. There are two attributes again that are very similar, Al-Wahid and Al-Ahad. Wahid means one, which means He is the only one. He is one in everything. There is no partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one. We don't have two or three or four. He is one. One also refers to, when we all know that anything that exists in the world, the beginning of everything is one. The beginning of everything is one. Take any number, because everything will be counted through numbers. There are these many human beings. There are these many houses. There are these many lights. What does this number means take any number, it's addition of ones. When you have 101, then we call it 100. When ones keep on increasing, and there is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, we say this is million. What does million means? You have one, but there are millions. And we call it million. So the beginning of any and every number is 1. The beginning of everything is 1. Al-Wahid means the beginning of everything, he is Al-Wahid. Everything began from there. This is what Al-Wahid refers to. Very important. Something that we normally don't pay attention to this attribute. Mostly when people talk about Wahid, they confuse it with Ahad. And I will explain what Ahad means. Wahid refers to the beginning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beginning of everything. Just like when Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was questioned by a person who did not believe in God. And the person asked him, where is Allah? Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah knew that regardless of what you tell this person, he is going to object it. He came with the intention of objecting. So, he wanted to give him an example where he can also, after knowing that example, he will have no way of objecting to it. And if he would object, he will have to respond according to that example. He will have to be responsible for giving the response first. And that was Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah asked someone to go and bring a glass of milk. When the glass of milk was brought, he asked the person, is there any cream in this milk? He said, yes. Where is it? Where is the cream? Could you point somewhere in the glass, in that milk, that you can tell me that milk is only in this portion of the cream is only in this portion of the milk? He said, no. It's everywhere. It's mixed. So he said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could create something that is everywhere, then why are you doubting Allah being everywhere? He's everywhere. Now, if you would have told him he's everywhere, that person would object, oh, is he here? How can he fit? How? But now he's giving an example. Look, you say that there is cream in here, and you also believe that you can take the cream out of the milk. How are you going to pull it out? People, take the cream out of the milk. How do you take it out? There are ways of taking it out. So, just as there is cream everywhere, same thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere. This person's next question was, which direction Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at? Again, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah knew that just simple explanation in words will not help this person. So he wanted to give him another example. He gets a candle, and then he asks this person, what direction the light of the candle is going to? Which direction the light is facing? He says, every direction. You can't say that it's facing this direction or facing that direction. It's all directions. So he said, if Allah can create a light that goes all around, He can't see all around Himself. How can you doubt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having the ability of seeing all around if this light sees all around and goes all around at the same time? Now this person, according to his understanding, comes with the most difficult question, and he says, what is above Allah? What is above Allah? Now if you say that, if you just simply try to explain to the person, He's above everything and then there is nothing above Him, is there a space? What is it? So, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says, count from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He says, go the other way now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He says, what's beyond 1? Nothing. Go, keep on going. What's after 1? Nothing. He says, that Allah is Wahid. Allah is 1. There is nothing beyond 1. When you go to 1, then nothing comes beyond 1. This is what Wahid means. Now when I say Allah is 1, which means He's above everything, there is nothing beyond Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The beginning of everything. Above everything. This is what Wahid means. And, as I said, ahad. Ahad has to be connected with wahid, because wahid means he is the beginning. But there is a possibility, when you say Allah is wahid, there is a possibility with wahid you add one more, and that becomes ithnain, becomes two. So one, and then you can add one more and becomes two. So, therefore, we add Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's another attribute is al-ahad, which means unique. Al-ahad means he is unique. So he is one and he is unique. Which means it's such a one that there is no another one like it. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. This is what that ayah means. If you want to put the word لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, there is nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one word, that is al-ahad. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ikhlas. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Which means, now, al-ahad, if we translate ahad as the one, it's wrong. Wahid is one. Al-ahad, Allah is unique. The one that is unique. You may put one there, you can add the one, or the word one over there, the one that is unique. But ahad refers to the uniqueness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means there is nothing similar to it. This is what ahad means. And this is why, when Bilal radiallahu anhu was being dragged on the streets of Makkah Mukarramah, he wasn't saying wahid, wahid, wahid. One, one, one. If you say one 3 times, there are 3 now. He was saying ahad, ahad, ahad. Unique, unique, unique. There is no one similar to him. Now, wahid would mean he is one, but there is a possibility of another one. Ahad means he is rejecting all of their idols. This is what upsets them. This is what was upsetting the kuffar of Quraysh, that don't call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ahad. This is why the importance of Surah Al-Ikhlas comes in picture now. The only surah where the word ahad is being used. The word ahad is not being used anywhere else in Quran. The only place. Thuluth al-Quran, 1/3 of the Quran. Surah Al-Ikhlas. Because the word ahad, as it talks about the uniqueness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word also in a very unique way in Quran. So there is no another word similar to it in Quran. Which means ahad is not used twice or 3 times in Quran. As it refers to the uniqueness, it's also used once only. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And this was the surah that was disturbing the kuffar the most. Because it talks about Allah being ahad. Very unique, no one similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of virtues have been mentioned in the hadith of Surah Al-Ikhlas, and we all know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says equals to 1/3 of the Quran, and that is the reason for it, that it talks about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very unique way, and 1/3 of the Quran talks about aqaid beliefs, about the greatness of Allah, oneness of Allah, attributes of Allah. So, this is why it's considered to be 1/3 of the Quran. And the way this surah explains the oneness of Allah, that is also very unique, as I said, ahad, which means He is very unique. And now, the uniqueness of Allah, there is no way a human being can ever grasp all the sides of it and understand all the details of it, that how come Allah is, in which way He's unique. He's unique in every way. Take all the attributes of Allah and He's unique in all of those. Take the existence of Allah and He's unique in that. Now, Quran speaks about Allah's hands. Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Allah's hands is above their hand. How does He have His hand? How about His eyesight? How about His existence? Everything is very unique. So this is what ahad refers to. That He is unique in every way. And since there is nothing, laysa kamithlihi shay, nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, therefore, we can never understand. We don't understand the existence of Allah, how it is. Because we haven't seen anything like this. Because laysa kamithlihi shay, there is nothing similar to that. And we can only imagine things according to what we have seen. If you try to make a blind person have an imagination of what a fridge is, you will have to explain to him things where he can touch things and then he can understand, okay, this is how it is. Otherwise he will have no imagination. He would never know if you put few words in front of him, fridge, car, aeroplane, microwave, and ask him to draw a picture of what you have mentioned to him. He would never be able to imagine what these things are. He doesn't know it. He has no idea whatsoever because he hasn't seen anything like that. This is exactly what we are. We are totally blind about the existence of Allah because we haven't seen anything like it. These words are used just to tell us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. His existence is there, and so that we realize that all of these attributes are there. He hears, he sees, his hearing is totally different than ours. His vision is totally different than ours. His power of speech is totally different than ours. Everything is totally different, totally unique. Therefore, we can never imagine how that is. So, when a person tries to object about the existence of Allah, how He is, where is Allah, and if He exists everywhere, how can He exist everywhere, and then objections about it. All of these things, they really are beyond our understanding, and therefore, when a person is trying to explain this according to the existence of Allah, according to his own understanding, this person is going beyond his capacity and beyond his limits. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ahad. So He's Wahid, He is one, the beginning of everything, and He is Ahad, which means there is nothing similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For those who know a little bit of the Arabic language, this thing may make the point even more clear, that when a person would ask, is there anyone in the house? And you say, لا يوجد في البيت واحد. There is no واحد in the house. لا يوجد في البيت واحد بل يوجد اثنان. But there are two. You can say this. But if a person would say, لا يوجد في البيت أحد. There is no أحد in the house. Can you say now, بل اثنان? This is where the difference between واحد and أحد means. واحد means one, and أحد means rejecting everyone else. Wahid tells us the existence of the one, tells us the beginning of everything, and Ahad refers to rejecting anything else beside this one. So Al-Wahid Al-Ahad means He is the only one. Al-Ahad, He is unique. There is no one like that one. Another attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is As-Samad. What does As-Samad means? I was surprised really when I started going through the translations, and people have translated the word Samad in different ways. None of them was, or most of them really were not anywhere close to what the word Samad means. Samad yasmudu in Arabic language means to depend on something, to lean on something. Sumud, leaning. If you put this pillar, you have a stick, you have a piece of wood, and you make it stand against the wall, so this thing is sumud, is leaning against the wall is holding it from falling down. This is sumud. In Arabic language, the word Baytul Masmud is used, which means a house that everyone goes to whenever they have a need. So Samada Yasmudu means a person who leans towards something. And accordingly, As-Samad is the one that everyone leans to, everyone depends on. And this is why the best meaning of Samad, As-Samad would be independent. The one who is totally independent. He does not lean on anything else, but everything else dependent on him. Everything else leans on him. Independent also is half of the meaning of Samad really. Because independent would mean he does not depend on anyone else. But does not refer to the other half meaning of the Samad, which means everything else depends on him. Whereas in Arabic language, As-Samad means something that everything leans on it. Everything would lean on it, and this thing does not lean on anything else, does not depend on anything else. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we say Allah As-Samad, which means He does not need anyone and anything. He is not in need of anything. And everyone else is in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why. Now Surah Al-Ikhlas would come in picture again. Allahu Samad. Out of all the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this very unique surah, the short surah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very short form wanted to mention His greatness, His oneness, His uniqueness, He mentioned this attribute As-Samad. And from this we can understand the depth of this attribute, how deep this would be. But very briefly to understand why Samad is used in this surah, the next ayah may explain it a little bit. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Every person in this world needs parents, father and mother, either both or one. Every person needs someone for his beginning, and we all like to have children. We need children. Children is our need, is not only for fun. It's our need to have children. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, As-Samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad. This explains that how independent He is, that He does not even need family, forget about needing anything else. The first thing a person would need is a family. An infant comes into the world, he needs parents. Throw the child in the desert, the child would die. Except if a miracle will happen, that's different, but the general rule is, you throw the child in the desert, the child is going to die. So first thing, you need a family. Allahu Samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad. He's such an independent that He does not need anyone to be above Him. He doesn't even need anyone to be under Him. We need someone above us to raise us. Someone under us to do something for us. This is how the whole system of the world is running. Some people are above you, some people are under you. But Allah Samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad. No one above Him. He doesn't need anyone to be above Him. He doesn't need anyone to be under Him. It may be easy to understand that Allah doesn't need anyone to be above Him. But now when we look at this As-Samad, this attribute of As-Samad, and then you compare, and you start looking at lam yalid wa lam yulad, really it's a matter of belief and understanding and realizing He doesn't even need anyone under Him. He doesn't need it. In other words, He doesn't need ibadah. He doesn't need this world. He doesn't need angels. He doesn't need anything. No one above Him, no one under Him. He's totally independent. Allahu Samad. So this is what Samad means, the one who is totally independent. Now, if people start attaching the strings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needed a family, He needed this, He needed that, He needed rest, then He is not a Samad. And then this is fine, this is really having faults in Rabb subhanahu wa ta'ala, in God, in Creator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we start really looking at the word Samad, we can say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to drink. He doesn't need to rest. He doesn't need to sleep. He doesn't need light. He doesn't need darkness. He doesn't need any protection from cold or from hot. He doesn't need anything. As-Samad. And the reason I mention this, and it is important for us to know this, when other people are introducing their gods and partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would always see that people can never present anything that is a samad, that is independent. They can never present anything that is just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who's a samad. Anything that would bring, just like the kuffar, as they were bringing idols, amazing how dependent these idols are in their own existence for someone to sit and make them. A person who wants to worship them, he has to sit and make that one, or he has to pay the money and buy one. And then he has to have legs and supports to hold them. And he has to protect these idols from having a strong wind that would throw them down, from someone that would come with an axe and break them, someone that hit them with a hammer and damage them. All of this is needed. In addition to this, amazing that kuffar used to even go and present some food in front of these idols. They know he won't eat. It's still there presenting it. I don't know for what reason. At least they should have done this favor to themselves. Don't put food there. So you tell people that he doesn't eat. With all the other needs that he has, but at least he doesn't eat. But no, they're also going and putting the food over there. When they try to present other things, just like Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, as they would make him partner to God, wal-iyazu billah, now they will have to, what they do is, you would read the Bible and you would see that he used to eat, he used to drink, he used to get tired, he's afraid. Shaitan would pick him up and take him around and scare him, was about to throw him once from the top of the mountain. Now, with all of this, how can he be a samad? Independent. He needs food, he needs bathroom, he needs rest. So he needs pillow, he needs to sleep, he needs the ground to rest. All of these things will not allow that person to be a samad. So this attribute is such a unique attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if a person would bring any partner to Allah, right away you can prove that he cannot be a samad. That's it, right away. You don't have to go through anything else. Just prove that he cannot be a samad and Allah is samad. That's it. Allah is independent. Everything else is dependent. And the other part of it, you can't even talk about. And that is, can anything depend on this idol? Can anything depend on those people? No way. They are dependent. That's the first point. If they are dependent, that's it. Everything is gone. Then how can others depend on something that is dependent on others? If something is dependent on others, and now you depend on that, of course, you are always in danger. But when you depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is samad, which means Allah is totally independent, He does not depend on anyone, now you are in good hands. Now you depended on someone who is not dependent on others. Something will tell him, no, I won't hold you if you hold this person. Okay, then I'll throw this person in the fire. No, this is not the way. He is independent. Allahu samad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us attachment to a samad subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we realize that only Allah is independent. And everyone else in this world is dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of how powerful the person may be, how powerful the tool may be, anything, regardless of how much strength, power we can put in anything, everything depends on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission. If Allah would allow it, it would happen. Allah does not allow it, nothing would happen. And once a person would have this, we would realize one thing for sure. It will give us strength in our personality, realizing that every other person is leaning on something that is about to fall. Every person is leaning on something that is about to fall. Because those are worldly things. And a mu'min is always leaning on Rabbul Alameen, who would never fall. And therefore a mu'min will always stand with his iman, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا. مولاي صل وسلم دائما